ready?
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Key Peoples of Color panel. Yes. Shout out to my POC and my BOCs. All right. So my name is Kenzo, or Sir Kenzo. I am from New York City. I am Mr. Eagle NYC 2022. I have to remember that. Yeah. Thank you. And I have a couple of things to say. I wrote them down. Yeah. I know. Now less. So I'm honored to be here at Kink Down South. Thank you for inviting me all. First and foremost, thank you again, Kink Down South. It's truly an honor and a privilege to be here and part of this vibrant and inclusive community. I also want to thank our esteemed panelists today who will be introducing themselves a bit shortly. And thank you for the contributions you all have made in the community. We recognize you and we love and appreciate all the work that you have done. So thank you again. So about this panel, right? The Key Peoples of Leather panel is very important because we are here to gather and celebrate people in the leather. It's a little woo.
I'm getting it.
Key people of leather that has provided not only diversity, but showed inclusivity within the kink community here in Atlanta. And we want to recognize you and show everyone that you are equally as important and known. So again, thank you. Alrighty, so you ready for some questions? Okay.
Sure.
So one question, let me pull up my question. Yeah. Could you share a bit about your journey into Leather and Kink Community and tell us who you are? Oh.
Well, Brandy. I was like, well, hi. So my name is Christopher Gonzales. I am an Atlanta local. I was World Cup 2019-2020. I was also Mr. GNI Leather 2022, and I competed at International Mr. Leather Class of 45. I was first runner-up at IML 45 last year, not this past year, last year.
Give it up.
Thank you. There's a very signature photo of me with my asshole kissing the stage, so in a full split. What was the question?
Can you share a bit about your journey into leather community?
Sure. Okay, so my journey into leather started actually in the bear community. So I found the bear community being in Orlando, being a part of the Orlando City Bears at first. I was their bartender for their bear nights, but I was also a volunteer selling Jello shots, doing all that. I competed at International Bear Bash, which was like a local event that happened there. Ended up going to compete at North American Bear Weekend. That was my first contest that I was like, oh, holy, can I curse? Yeah. Holy shit. I was like, everybody here is so like decked out in their leather. There were people that were very involved in the community, had all these pieces. And so I actually attribute all of my learning of how to dress when you're going to title night, when somebody's being sashed for their new title, of how to present yourself at different socials, stuff like that. Proper protocol, like my first dip into that was actually all ONYX Midwest and Great Lakes. They were the two groups that really took me under their wing, primarily, and I give them credit every single time. Puma and Treble, they brought me under their wing, and they were like, girl, you look a hot ass mess, so you need to get shit together.
What's ONYX?
So ONYX is a group of primarily POC. I know that there have been some chapters that have let
10.
Yeah. So there are groups that are primarily just affinity groups for people of color who are into leather and kink, and they have how many chapters?
10.
10. Perfect. 10 chapters in the 10 chapters in the U.S. in particular. And so I am not a member of ONYX, but I am a huge supporter of what they stand for. and what they are doing for the community, because I think that visibility of seeing people who look like you in leather is very important, and that's what drew me into it. So they were the first people who really drew me into that, and then I started meeting other title holders who really kind of showed me where to go and how to find my niche, and my niche was that intersectionality of bear and leather, and so that's what I represent now. I do body positivity yoga. I'm teaching naked yoga here tomorrow, and I'm hosting the nude social tomorrow. So it's all about body positivity and loving the skin that you're in. Even though I myself sometimes struggle with that too, it's understanding that that's okay and that's the norm. But still being proud and happy of the person that you are, because this is the only body that you get. So, yeah.
Thank you. Mix Idris.
Hi, everyone. Can y'all hear me? Yes. Hi, everyone. First of all, thank y'all for inviting me, taking your time to come up here and see us. How has my journey been, was the question?
Start.
How did my journey start?
Yeah.
I have had, I guess you could kind of say I'm like Carly B. I didn't need a map hoe. I made my own route. I have been literally since 2015 when I joined ONYX Leathermen of Color, I have been rewriting history. And what I mean by that is when I crossed, we were the first line to cross 15 people. I am line brother number 2 of the cinematic 15. That was the first time I made history.
Which chapter?
In 2018, I went on to compete and become North Carolina Leather's first ever non-binary MX title holder. Creating an entire lane, thank you guys, creating an entire lane for not only for POC and BIPOC and African American individuals, but anyone who wants to try to self-identify as being non-binary or who just refuses to have those social prefixes and things of that nature put on them. Then I went on to go on to compete at the regional level at Southeast Leather Fest. Wonderful, marvelous event. Please come check us out next week if you're in town. And once again, and at that point in time, I didn't even know what I was doing. It wasn't until my sash parent, Eomar, who was an Onyx Pearl, sashed me on stage, and they actually announced that once again, I had rewritten history because I was the first person biologically born with a dick to hold this title. I was the first Onyx full brother to hold this title. It was something else I can't remember, but I was the first to actually do that and rewrote it again. So since I have been in this, my journey has had some highs, but it's also had some very, 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 very lows. As you can look at me, I'm like drumline. I always add a little something, something on the end. So that's always not cohesive, and that's not always a safe space for me. But I had to be the person to say, you know what? Don't you ever try me. Any space I walk in is my space, and we're gonna make this my space. And I'm gonna take this seat at this table, and I'm gonna show you how to make this a safe space for me. But everybody doesn't have that in them, and believe it or not, and this is a total shocker to everyone, I'm actually an introvert. Not. But I have seen too many people that look like me mutilate themselves, take their lives, go on the street and just do astronomical things. And I thought it was time for somebody somewhere to take a stance and say, listen, baby, not only can I put you in this chair and I can attach this lace front and brace you, clip you, cut you, roll you, put you out this door, but I can also go in this boardroom and I can lay down and get you this $1 million account that you need as well. So, you know, my journey has been about, and it's all been selfless. It has not been about me. It's about everybody else who are too scared to speak up, who are too shy. Some people are just non-confrontational. They're just passive aggressive. But you still have a right to be seen and heard. And other than Billy Porter, who was it who was an androgynous person in the limelight that we seen? So that's me in a nutshell in my journey.
Thank you, Mix Idris.
Thank you.
Dr. Domina.
Hello, hi, am Doc Domina. Can you all hear me okay? Cool. So I am, I guess, more leather adjacent in that my sphere is more BDSM kink heavy. And I'll start from like my meta focus, which is intersectionality and inclusion, from different lenses of life. Like from the professional lens, that holds a space very near and dear to my heart, out in like the vanilla world and such. Providing people, and you know, this is why it's amazing to have spaces like this, because it's like you get to hear the parallel processes that other people have had and the mindsets that they have that overlap with your own, or I don't know, and that like warms my heart, so thank y'all. But just providing equity and inclusion in spaces where that's not even a construct or a thought for people to have. I am originally from Atlanta. I spent 8 years in the Bay Area. That's where I got my intro and connection into the kink and BDSM scene. And then by virtue of that, that introduced me to leather. Being from Atlanta, I was familiar with the leather scene, but in terms of equity and inclusion, being, especially at that time, more femme female, I was like, oh, okay, like I respect it, it's lovely, but like, I don't know it. I don't feel a connection to it because we don't know what we don't know. And so then, being in the Bay Area, was taught, connected with individuals, played with individuals where that is their passion. And I am passionate about learning about whatever people are passionate about because it only makes life better, in my opinion. And so, you know, in my trajectory in BDSM and kink, I am a top dom sadist, to put those things out there. So, you know, leather definitely can come into beautiful play in many ways in that frame and realm. But it's also provided space to learn about things like boot blacking from someone who maybe out and about this weekend, but she like put on a wonderful presentation just last weekend and is connected with one of my dungeon sisters. And so from that, it's an individual that I share space with, and so I can learn with, because I'm like, I may be expert in this realm, or like, not even expert, never expert, but I may know a little bit of something about something in this realm, but you know, you're expert in this realm, so I'm gonna constantly learn, regardless of titles, identities, etc. Because if you have knowledge, knowledge is power, and in BDSM, power exchange is so crucial, and I'm sure we're gonna talk about that in this in a second. But you know, so like knowledge is power, and it's no fun if the people you're playing with don't have any power that they're trusting you with. And then in turn, in order to be able to hold power, you need to have as much knowledge as possible. So with that, you know, a little bit of rambling about me, but like it's been, you know, sitting in spaces and just trying to absorb and learn and respect. And then by virtue of that, trying to share and connect with what I have to offer. And again, just trusting and respecting the frames. And so that's how I've connected in these spaces. That's how I've been able to meet and have dialogue with individuals such as these lovely folks right here, lovely folks in this room. Thank you for being here. But yeah, that's my rambling, my spiel.
Thank you. Yeah.
I have a quick question, because you said something, and I want you to break down just real quick a little bit, because when most people hear that word, they think of money, that equity portion.
Yes.
Can you just break that down a little bit about what you meant by, because to some people, I bet you that in the sense that you're talking, it went over their head. I got it. And I'm not saying nobody else, I'm not saying no one else out here got it, but I'm pretty sure there's someone out there that doesn't get that dual meaning of what you meant by that equity.
So equity, a lot of the time there's a discussion around equality, which is wonderful. I'm visual in a sense, so there's definitely lovely visuals out there. But if we think about equality, it's like, okay, like everybody in the room gets dope boots. Cool. Okay, that's lovely. However, if I'm a size 8 and someone else is a size 12 and someone else is a size 5, having those boots is a win. The thought is nice, but that's where equity comes into play. Exactly. Equity is providing resources to people that they can actually use that meet them where they're at. And so in communities, in our different spheres of the umbrellas, or under the umbrella of kink, you know, and then out, out in the world, there can be discussions around, oh, okay, well, how do we provide space? How do we provide time? How do we provide platforms for people? But then at times it's like, okay, the intention is lovely, it's important, it's wonderful, and it's from a lens of like, oh, okay, we want to give everyone a time to talk. But if in order to be heard, you need kind of different decibel levels, then sometimes that gets lost. So equity, providing open spaces that provide resources that meet a person's needs and meet them where they're at. So thank you for that.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
And for everybody who is coming in, welcome to the Key Peoples of Color panel. My name is Sir Kenzo, and we have our panel here again. I'm going to answer the first question as well. Sharing a little bit of my leather experience. Well, I've been practicing leather and kink safely since 2017. I've been a kinkster probably to the point when I was 11 years old. I'm ABDL originally, which means an adult baby diaper lover. And when I discovered those kinks, I was online looking for resources on the internet, trying to figure out what was wrong with me. Then figuring out that there was nothing really wrong with me. I was just weird, but it was okay to be weird. While growing up into my own, trying to figure out where community fits in for me, because no shade, I was surrounded mostly by white folks. It became, what can I do to bring people that were looking like me out into the area? What can I do for people that look like me to help them explore and practice it safely? I joined ONYX New York Northeast in 2019, becoming vice president of the organization, road captain of the organization, secretary of the organization, and starting at least 5 different clubs in New York alone, traveling all over the country, educating people in the masses about kink and leather and being black in kink and leather spaces. One thing that I loved and learned about my journey is, one, that I had to take time for myself. That's one. And 2, that as a person of color, having the opportunity to just step outside the box and just reflect on who I wanted to be in this community, I had to put myself out there as much as possible and show the world that I am truly 3 times as powerful than anybody in this world. Bitch, I'm Beyonce. And I speak that to my head into existence. And I empower every single person of color to try to do the same as well. Which leads me into my second question. Oh. Oh, no worries. We have our other panelists. Everyone, please introduce yourselves and say hello to MsDDom.
I apologize for my tardiness. I am old and not feeling good. I'm MsDDom. I have been in the Atlanta community since about, no, it's not been that long, about 2008. And so my journey has been leather, kink, and femdom. So is that all I'm supposed to say? Or should I say more?
Say what you want to say. Say what you need to say.
So also, I am originally from Denver, and I relocated to Atlanta, Georgia. When I did, I decided to jump into the kink community. And so through my participation, I have started as a someone, the Black Atlanta Munch, Black Femdoms Atlanta, Women in Leather Atlanta. And I'm just very nosy. So I'm all over the place. I do travel, and I try to insert myself for the purpose of BIPOC people being present. So I'm on the board of Leather Rain, which is in Seattle, Washington. I'm on the something for Women of Drummer, again, to make sure that BIPOC women are present. So I just do a lot of stuff. You shouldn't have gave this to me.
Precisely what we should.
But she does though.
Thank
You're
you.
as sweet as her, and loving as her. Everybody wants you.
So, my second question for the panelists is, what attracted you to the leather scene initially?
What attracted me to the leather scene initially? So I talked a little bit about the fact that ONYX in particular, I talked a little bit about the fact that ONYX initially kind of took me under their wing. What I really liked about ONYX in particular was the actual siblingship and the familial aspect of ONYX. I think that there was something about the fact that I had found these two almost mentors, but it wasn't me actively seeking them. It was them seeing something in me and saying, hey, we see something in you, we want to help you down this journey. And to me, it's kind of, I've always been an educator, finding these spaces that have been open and willing for me to come in and teach my bear yoga classes, to teach my body positivity, host naked socials, allow me to speak on panels about my experience and shared experiences, I think is something that is really important, especially because when I was coming up, I should rewind. Part of the reason why I wanted to run for GNI Leather in particular was because it is a nudist title, which a lot of people ask me. We'll have a conversation later if you want to talk about it, but how nudism and leather intersect. We'll talk about that later. But I think in particular with GNI Leather, I wanted to run for that title because I didn't see anybody who looked like me that was in that title before. We had the Ralph Bruneaus, we had the, Mark Branson came before me, and he is incredibly gender fluid, and it was a beautiful thing to see. But it was very often a cisgendered white man who came into a lot of money and had a lot of money that was able to hold that title. And I think I'd make the joke that GNI has the highest application fee because in order to compete for the title, you have to go to camp. And camp can be $1,000, right? So there was no ability for me to go other than volunteering year after year to be there and represent. And that was the community that I found. And so the educational side of the Pocono Eagle, which is our eagle that we have on site at GNI, as well as being really the first person of color to hold that title, was what really drew me into that. So it's been kind of like stepping stones ever since. And then to place that podium last year and be a proud big boy on the podium was like otherworldly for me. And to be brown, and a big boy on the panel on the podium was just, it was crazy to me.
Iconic.
And so, it was weird and beautiful because all of these people that I held in such high regard that were part of my family were now like turning around and being like, how can we help you now? You know what I'm saying? I was always coming to them and saying, how can I help you? How can I help you? And then they turned around and said, how can we help you have the best year ever? And it was just that familial aspect. So I have a really strong support system. And I don't know that I would have found that without this community.
Thank you. Mr. Idris?
I was so into his response. What was the question again?
The question is, what attracted you to the leather scene initially?
You know how they raised us, you're supposed to be a man, streets, and in the bed. Well, the gag is, bitch, I'm just fucking disgusting. And there was a part of me that was missing. And being married to the love of my life for almost 20 years, that was fulfilled. Truly to the point to where I'm so blessed and highly favored. Literally, I was born June 1st, 1979. He was born June 1st, 1980. Literally, this man was made for me. I was blessed. I was complete. But there was still something that just wasn't there. It was some flame missing until 2014, 4th of July, when we walked into the Atlanta E. Oh my God! It was people like me, and we were were flogging, we were spanking, and it was wax play, it was fire play going on, and I felt like I was at home. Oh, I had found home. And just like you said, I walked over and I started talking, and I mean, instantly just connected with them and started talking about the information that I already knew. They were like, listen, we have a line starting in November. Do you want to be on it? Like, you're there, you are ready for this. We see it in you, and the rest is kind of like downhill from there. I found my niche, I came in, and the thing about it is, it's a pledge process when you pledge for ONYX, and it can go anywhere from 3 to 6 months. During this process, I can't even front with you. I came in with being one individual and one set of rules and one set of kinks, was a totally different person by the time I came out. Even down to the fact of my sexual identity changed from even being gay to pansexual. For the sole fact of, in this community, one of the things that we stand on is education, empowering, and exploring.
Repeat that.
Why am I limiting myself just to the energy of what skin says is my brother? Why can't I give my brother right here an opportunity too? You see what I'm saying? His skin color got nothing to do with it. That's still my brother. That's still an opportunity for me to get some energy. This is my sister. That's still an opportunity for me to exchange some energy. Don't limit myself. Even when it came to my kinks and fetishes, it's a simple fact of, it was a mind opener. How do I truly know? Just because you see it and say, I don't like it. How many times have you went to the cookout and said, who made the potato salad? It don't look right. And you get you a little spoonful and taste it. I'm like, that is fine. Now, who made this? The same applies to my kinks and my fetishes. This lifestyle was truly an eye-opener for me, not only within the kink community, but just within life, period. About providing an opportunity that someone may not necessarily get on a regular, everyday, to-day basis. Meet them where they are, period. I remember when I went to international, I went to Person of Leather International, and a question was asked of me, how would I explain to someone looking on the inside of this about the play that we do and things of that nature? And I responded with, I'm not gonna tell you how she used to be in a domestic violence relationship and she has a little bit of PTSD. And that session that she's doing right now is therapeutic and she's able to release some endorphins. I'm not gonna tell you how this person over here that's have a service pup, how they were struggling mentally, and now their service pup is helping them and bringing them out of their PTSD and bringing them out of some of that ACER score. I'm not gonna tell you that, I'll just let you go and ask them that. Quit looking at stuff on the surface and the outside. It's something that I had to learn, something that this community taught me. So that's me, that's my nutshell on it.
So my introduction again was basically a mentor I had from the Dom end of things. So flogging, whips, which whips hold a lot of nuance in my mind. As a black woman from the South, and impact play, and that's again another combo. But you know, again, in terms of my mind and coming from here and going out there, my context was different, and so like I connected with the, you know, the sensation-oriented component of things. I connected with the psych of visuals. I connected with certain components intuitively But for that, I was like, oh, okay, I get that somebody's like, that's their jam, but didn't understand the layers. And so over time, having individuals where they're like, okay, but there's the spirituality component. Like, there's this connection to something that literally was another living organism, another being, and this is the history, this is how it connects individuals, and this is the meaning. And so being able to connect with that, I was like, oh, okay, like this flows and aligns with a lot, like already happening in here. And so that kind of like fostered more curiosity and disclosure. Like the psych end of the world is my realm, and like out there, but in here as well. And understanding that, for example, if somebody, and to piggyback off of what you're saying, that therapeutic component, if someone, for example, likes bondage, they like mummification, they like the sensation of certain types of leather on their skin, it is containment, it is grounding, it is a sense of security. And so being able to understand that and connect with that, and then just being increasingly curious and wanting to learn more, opened the door, and then I walked through the door, and then I kept walking and walking. I'm still walking in one room, and there may be, I'm sure there are others. But, you know, again, I think the individuals that were open to sharing their experiences and explaining things from their lens, and breaking it down, because it's never anybody's responsibility to teach these things and to share their experience, and so it's truly a gift when they do. And you know, and these were individuals where initially it was individuals in the MsDDom community, but then it would be individuals who I played with or clients, and you know, them again feeling open and willing to give me more intellectual capital. And then I've been able to be like, oh, okay, you know, like I've always been into Jordans, and then having conversations of like, do sneakers count as being a part of the leather community? Like boot blacking, can I take this here for service? And like going through those things, it's like, oh, okay. So, you know, again, other people just being open and willing to teach me and have conversations and have dialogue is what got me into it.
Thank you. MsDDom?
So you're saying my initial entry or interest, was more structural, and when I first was kind of just milling around and seeing what's going on, I got my taste like in Colorado, and then I was coming back and forth to Atlanta. But when I think of leather, initially people were asking me, are you leather? And I would say, absolutely not. Like, don't call me that. I don't know what that means. I didn't get no permission to say I'm leather. Like, that's what I was doing. I'm like, no, I'm not leather. And then I would go home and be like, yeah, I probably am. But I'm going to keep saying no. So, like, I would say no so much. And then I would have, like, conversations with, and I wouldn't call him an official mentor, but we would have conversations, and I was attending his online classes. That's Master Black Zeus, who has passed away last year. And so we would have those conversations about being leather. And so I would like, I'm probably that. And then he was like, yes, why do you keep telling people no? And it's like, I thought I had to have permission. Like someone has to say, ding, you're leather. And he was like, no, you know, it's just how you live. Those things that you like, those things you enjoy, you know, the company that you keep. And I even say that because like minds is really something that is precious, because you don't have to put that part of yourself on the shelf, that vanilla, you know, the kinky part, you don't have to put yourself on the shelf and then kind of talk with the filter. And so I was just like, okay, so the next time somebody asked me, I was like, yes, I am leather, and I probably have been leather for a long time, but I was just denying it. And I feel like that's what I was doing. I was actually just denying a part of myself by telling people I was not that. And so I think, you know, even my entry being into kink in the MsDDom scene, you know, and trying to hide, like I could hide in femdom spaces because I didn't see a lot of leather femdoms when there were leather femdoms. And so I was just like, okay, I need to actually embrace all of who I am, because there are a lot of different intersections, even though the intersection, what you see is a black woman, older, you know, those types of things. But I also feel my intersections were leather woman, femdom, you know, sadist, those types of things, you know, a master, yes. So there were just a lot of things, you know. I'm in a master-slave relationship, and I get to hang out with other masters and slaves who embrace leather. So it was just a lot of different things that I had to just come to terms with for myself, so that I could fully be a participant and fully like give of myself to be that person that would be open to listening and talking and sharing. I had to first like accept that myself. So I know it's not an additional enter, but it was just, I'm not that.
Thank you, Ms. D. For me, what I would say what attracted me to the leather scene was the power of education and what it can actually do while practicing safely. Like I said before, I've been practicing leather and kink safely since 2017. Before then, my experiences have always ended up with me being hurt or have been traumatic. And what it allowed me to do in leather spaces was to sit there and actually negotiate and get consent from both parties of how I want to feel and how that other person wants to feel as well. So we know when we're entering a scene consensually and safely. One thing that I loved and appreciate about that aspect of my journey was just I got to teach and educate the others, everyone here, about how we can do that safely and how we can continuously preaching safe, sane, and consensualness within kink. So, to my third question, how has your identity as a person of color influenced your experience in leather and kink spaces? Whew. That's a big one.
Child. So for me, it was really interesting going from the World Cup title, which I regarded and people in the bear community regarded as like the international title for bears, right? And so people were like, wow, you did the thing, right? When I competed, it was myself and one other person, but I almost think that that's harder than competing against 54 other people. Anyone who's been to IMSL, anyone who's been to a smaller contest in terms of like on the international scale where there's less contestants can attest to that, because you really like, the points can be so close. And even within IML, I know that sometimes the points can be within 1 point of each other, or there can be a tie. And so it's like, it's very interesting. For me, I thought that coming into World Cup, I was going to be allowed into spaces that I was not allowed before. That was not the case. There was still, as my identity as a bear, as a cub in that community, that was still seen as less than by a lot of people in this community, in the leather and kink community. And so I wasn't allowed into those spaces, or I wasn't invited into those spaces. And so I said, okay, well, fuck that. I'm gonna go into these spaces, I'm gonna hold my space, whether they want me to or not. And I'm gonna be unapologetic about it. And then when I went to GNI and I competed for that title, it wasn't until well after I got the title initially, because initially I felt as though I probably wasn't the title holder that they wanted, but I was the title holder that they got. So I was going to do what I needed to do to represent myself in the best light possible and to represent the organization and what I loved about the organization. And so it wasn't until way after that I really realized that I did have the support of those people, and it was changing that mindset, that growth that happens while you're in the community that you really realize there might have been people who might have been bringing you down, but sometimes it's that tough love that is like, it's a facade of the love that they really want to give, but it has to be in that tough love. Like my producer was from the military, so like he didn't show any softness to me. He didn't show any softness to the title holders. But it wasn't until well after our relationship as producer and title holder happened that I was like, oh, he was really supportive, right? And so, but then once I got onto the podium, everybody all of a sudden started inviting Chris to all of these events. And I was like, how interesting that I am the token for a lot of these events. But then I had to reframe that and say, okay, I might be, or I might feel like the token going into a lot of these events, but what does that do for the visibility of somebody who looks like me?
Absolutely.
I can't play the victim of they're only inviting me because I'm the big bones, what is it, big butch body, whatever, right?
Bad build, butch body.
Right, I'm not the big butch body that they're inviting me, that they're inviting me to this event because of that. But like, I'm also representing, like, I hate to say this, and I had to have this conversation with quite a few people who felt very, very, very personally about not placing on podium at IML, or they felt like their entire leather journey was a scam because they didn't do well at IML, whatever. I had to tell them, I said, look, I'm being invited to a lot of these events because the fact of the matter is that you as a cisgendered white man are being represented already by a lot of people in that community. I'm not going to say too many because you know, well, and you can, and you know
Too
what?
many.
But here's the thing though, because I'm not. Here's the thing, I had to learn. Just because I'm attending this event does not mean that I'm taking space from that person also attending the event. I'm creating the space for me to be here. I'm not kicking you out. I'm not saying you can't be here because of who you are. That would be counterintuitive to the journey and the mission that I'm trying to bring to myself, right?
Amen.
So like, I'm not kicking anybody out, I'm not saying any of this, but I had to reframe the token, right? The token colored person that was on the panel or judging or whatever. And I had to say, you know what, me being on this judging panel might have made somebody who's a little bigger feel really comfortable being on stage in something that they don't feel comfortable in, or even coming to the event. And so that's how my experience changed. I've flown all over the world judging events this year, and it's been wild. I think I've judged like 31 events, 31 titles in the past year. And it's just like, child, my bank account is broke. But yeah, if you're gonna be a title holder, have a travel fund or have a John that'll pay your bills. But it's just, it was really interesting being invited into those spaces. Finally being invited into those spaces. But then having to change that victim blaming, that victim mindset.
She got something to say. Next, Idris.
What's the question again, Chad? Because I'm going to tell you, I'm finna make everybody draw hit the front.
How has your identity as a person of color influenced your experience in leather and kink spaces?
When it comes to your Caucasian, European spaces, hey, there he is. That is the man. Oh my God. I literally have had people like pass out on me. People are like, I'll never forget your fantasy. I get that all the time from the European Caucasian descendants. In our own community, right now, some people don't even realize that they still don't even acknowledge me as a historical two-time title holder.
Yeah.
For real. I don't have to worry about getting invites from this side. I have to worry about and fight for space in my own community that I look like that I'm sitting right next to. All because of the simple fact of I choose not to succumb to what society tells me that I should look like and how I should act as a POC individual. Because I choose to embrace my femininity side, because I choose to express it, because I feel like I am a human. I'm not a man, I'm not a female, I'm a human being. Period, point blank, before anything else. So because I choose to express that out, that side of me, I am basically truly an outcast in my own community. Think about it. How many of you from right here in the Atlanta area, think about how big ONYX is. Have you ever heard about me winning these titles? Have you ever seen me be acknowledged? But you see everybody else on the Leather Archives. You see them posting people, this and that and the third, but you've never seen, have you ever seen a post about me? Yeah, crickets, that's what I thought. So when it comes to that aspect, my thing is I have to go into my own community where I look like them and make a space for people like me. Like every day I get inboxes, I thank you for being you. I didn't take my life last night because I thought about you. I thought about you at CELP. I thought about you at International. I thought about you when you taught this class. I thought about you telling your story about your mental illness and how you survived. Like, but these are people who are they're too timid. They don't want to, I don't want to say that they're weak because they're not weak. It's just not it's not their element. It's not their calling. It was put upon me. I know it was. I feel it every day. That's why I'm on this panel now. That's why anytime I'm asked to show up and I show out and I tell the truth. That's why you notice I'm always alone. Have you ever seen out of all my pictures when I'm out and I take pictures in the community and I'm doing things? Do you see me with anybody? I am by myself. It's okay. I came in this world by myself. I'm gonna leave by myself. I'm gonna be all right. But I also feel like within our own community, before we try to continue to put down and harbor and talk about what isn't out there in the other community for us, first we need to check ourselves in our own community and start to support and love one another. No matter what your sexuality is, no matter what your gender is, how can you expect someone else to respect you when you don't even respect your own people? Period. So, you know, that's, and I hate to say it because I am always the one that brings this topic up. I'm known for it. And you know, some people want to say, oh, I'm on my soapbox, or, you know, oh, it's somebody's preference. And my thing is, you say, okay, in the instance of saying that is someone's preference, that these same individuals, when you see a Caucasian person and you see them on Jag, Groove, Grindr, Recon, all of them, and you see that their profile says no blacks or Hispanics, now you pissed and you ready to report them and do all of this. Why? It's their preference. You going to look for a job. If that Caucasian company say they don't want no blacks, no Hispanics, no Latinos, no none of that, why you mad? It's their preference, correct? We must start within our own community and rebuild and start to love one another. It's too many of us mutilating ourselves again. It's too many of us killing ourselves. It's too many of us struggling mentally and emotionally and feel like that we're alone, and we're not. I just had to go through one of the worst things I ever had to go through. Did I not?
You did.
And I had to do it alone. So much so, that individual's birthday was yesterday. Their bar night was yesterday. Do you think there was any acknowledgement? Do you think there was are you good? To let y'all in, my handler, if any of y'all have ever seen me run for a title, my handler that was on stage with me made the personal decision in January to go be with the Lord. It was totally out the blue. And it broke me mentally. It really did. I had to actually go and turn myself in and everything. And I had to do that alone. It was just me and my husband. And I shouldn't have had to go through that alone. But it's okay. I came out. I came through it, and that's why I'm here now to speak on that. We've got to stop leaving each other. Just because someone does not fit your brand. Just because someone is different than what you are, that is still a human being. That is still a life. They still have feelings, emotions, and everything. They have dreams. That's someone's child. It is our duty in life to help one another. It is our duty in life to be able to respect and get along and maneuver through life to help each other in their pursuit of happiness. So my challenge to the POC community, before we go out here and outcast this other community or put them on blast, what are you doing to repair your own community first?
Thank you, Ms. Idris. Doctor?
I, definitely resonate in shared space, so we're gonna have overlap. And I do wanna build off of that construct of being within POC spaces, in kink, in BDSM, in sexual orientation, gender identity, etc., and then bring back the construct of intersectionality and then power and privilege. And that, again, we don't know what we don't know. And so, like, I want to gel with that and say that it's, like, from my lens of both end. Because, being, like, I'm a pro bodybuilder. And so I have people that are like, oh, okay, that's your identity. That's what you are. I have a muscle kink, so I literally don't see you as a whole human. I see you as your quad. I see you as your bicep. So I say it jokingly, but, like, to me, that's, again, a parallel process to what being a POC in these spaces can be, and that it can feel very heavy and suffocating at times because I am given access, I'm given privilege to be in shared spaces and to have the ear and to be able to educate people in an out group. But going back to what I was saying before about that, me not assuming that anybody sharing their intellectual capital is something that they have to do. Sometimes people don't function with that headspace. And so then it can be, oh, okay, you have this knowledge, you know this, you care about this cause because it's helping you, right? So it's your duty to educate and inform and bring me up so that we can be in the same space. And, so then that's exhausting. And then again, it is privilege. It is a level of power to be able to do that. But it's heavy, it's exhausting. And then internally being like, I want to honor my intersectionality. I want to use my power and privilege to bring others from this identity that I hold into other common spaces, to help those coming after me, to bridge different communities. But like you said, sometimes within those spaces, because of internalized isms, because of lack of access to education, because of imperialism and colonialism and a conversation around that, and again, those internalized things, all of that comes into play in terms of how I am treated or heard or invited to a table that then the other group is like, oh, you already got a spot at that table, right? So like go sit and tell them that they're welcome over here. And it's like, ironically, I'm still trying to build a seat at that table too. And so, I am grateful to be, I'm a West Indian black woman from the South, amongst other things. So like there's a mishmash, and one of those West Indian identities is Haitian. So if you know anything about Haitian history, like we're a little cray, but we're down for the cause and we want to help others. And I feel like that is a core part of self, and that even if I'm navigating POC spaces, like regardless of interpersonally what's happening, I'm still trying to hold the lens of, but where is that coming from? What is bringing the person that I'm seeing to me in this moment in time? What's making them interact and engage with me in that way? And then I hold that headspace. And then when I'm going into the other spaces where I am the token, where I am the fetishized, literally archetype, I use that so that then they start to peel away at the layers and be like, oh shit, there are layers there. You're not just this body part. You're not just this color. Like I don't do race play, period. I'm like I don't care how much money you have. I don't care if we gel as an overall human at the end of the day. But I am going to educate you on this because I feel like that's my obligation to one of my identities. So I'm going to pour into my own stress cup, trying to put you back out into the world so you don't engage in a non-consensual and safe, sane practice with somebody that didn't want that shit. But again, all of that is being a POC in these communities. And again, it comes with power, it comes with privilege, and having the ability to be in spaces and have platforms, to have the dialogue, and to have community that is supportive in certain ways. But it does make that silence that much louder in other times. Because in the back of your head, you're like, damn, like I in my heart and my soul and my core care about this so much. And I am doing this, this, and this. And I don't have to say that this is why I'm doing this, this, and this. But then when I'm sitting with you and it's like, oh, okay, like I'm trying to give this little seed of info. And it's like, well, you're not this or you're not that, so I don't want to hear what you have to say. And it goes back to what everybody's been touching on, where it's like, you know, just hear everyone out, because everyone has something to offer, to share, and everyone has something to learn. And so if we view engagement as that power exchange, that energy exchange, and not just the physical construct itself, I feel like it could do a lot of things for a lot of communities, because being discriminatory in any group is only hurting each individual in the group.
Thank you, Doctor. Ms. D?
So, my presence in community as a person of color, I'm probably going to sound a little bit different, but I use that to my advantage. I said in my introduction that, you know, I'm pretty nosy. I go to a lot of different things. I travel a lot, and I do insert myself. When I had spoke about Leather Rain, I felt like I needed to insert myself there. And that's how I'm on the board on programming, because of needing to see more people of color instead of always being asked, you know, how do we do this? How do we get more brown people? And I will say, I am willing to take on a little bit of labor for that. I'm willing to do that. But once I do that, then now you have to run with that. Because I did my time. Yeah. I did my little bit of labor on that. And so I feel like my presence is important when I do travel and I am seen. My slave Cream Dream, he is Mexican American, first generation. So we present together on purpose so that you can see people in power exchange, in an MS dynamic, a person that is a slave, a black woman that uses the term master. So it is very important for me to be in all the places, even if I gotta put a trip on layaway. Which I do that a lot, so that's the secret. Layaway your trip.
Corner and afterpay, baby. Corner and afterpay.
Yeah, so I absolutely will put a trip on layaway so that I can be there and be seen, and so that people can say, oh, not for the purpose of elitism, for the purpose of who is she, where is she from, what does she do? Like that's because most of the time I don't even like to hear my name. Like, don't call my name, don't put me on the script, nothing like that. Because I like to be in the background doing that type of work. I like to help and see what can be done so there are more BIPOC people present. Like, what is the problem? Like, why don't you know as a producer that you cannot find these black and brown people? Or, you know, how do you just kind of like function? Do you go to a grocery store? Do you see black and brown people? Like, did you see black and brown people when you came into this hotel? Right. In the airport? Like, how are you telling me that? Like, how are you telling me you don't have a plan to include how are you telling me you don't have the DEI wherewithal to figure out, like, you know, we can include all of the other things that are intersection, right? Disability, gender, those type of things. But when it gets to race, you don't even like comprehend that? Like you don't, well, I have a black friend. Like, please don't tell me that. Like, please don't tell me you got one black friend because then I'm questioning your black friend. Like, what's wrong with your black friend?
Yes.
Your black friend don't have black friends? So that's what I'm doing. And so, and I have to go back to what Idris said about our own community as people of color. Because we are our worst enemy.
Amen.
We are our worst enemy, and you are so right. Like, that is not the conversation that usually comes from panels like this, is that you will have someone in your outer circle, because they definitely not in the inner circle, in your outer circle who is totally trying to derail everything you're trying to do to support your own people. I already said something to you about it. You know, and you know, I see some of my Black Munch folks here, you know, like putting it out there, you cannot come to the Black Atlanta Munch if you white. Like, period. Like, period. Like the 15 years that we have been in the community, we have evolved to figure out that we need our own space. In the beginning, it was this, but now it's not that. So you cannot come, and white people will hound you. They will be disrespectful and continue to ask, well, I just want to come, and the name starts with Black. So if you are not that, you can't come. And we fight, and then now I'm fighting with white folks, right? Telling them that, but now I have to fight with my own Black people to tell them that you cannot come with your partner. Like, you can't. But then you figure that it's good to, like, well, then I'm just gonna start chiseling away at that. But I'm gonna come to you and tell you, why MsDDom won't let me come? She should let me come. I'm gonna come to you and I'm gonna say the same thing. Like, that's disrespectful too. And that speaks volumes on how you feel about your own people and your own space, that you would feel like you need to now conquer and divide your own folks, make people choose sides so that you can get what you want, and you're not even thinking about the masses. You're not thinking about how the people feel in said group. So, yes, I had to come back to that. That's all I gotta say, because I'm already antsed.
Thank you, Ms. D. So, for me to answer this question, I would just like to announce the titles that I currently have and how have they been historical. Because I feel like a lot of people, especially with title holders, don't acknowledge the fact, and as you said, don't acknowledge the fact that a lot of us POC title holders, we are historical within the leather community. I am the only Black and Latino and the youngest Northeast puppy of 2020 and 2021. And I am currently, out of 4 Black men, the only one that identifies as non-binary to have the Mr. Eagle NYC title and to be the youngest one to do it. If that doesn't speak volumes on how we represent each other, then y'all all must look within one another and see how are we supporting one another within our communities. I run events in New York City, and I ran one called Euphoria. It was a Black-owned, it was a BIPOC-owned party, and we had over 200, 300 RSVPs. 0 people showed up.
What?
When I said I was angry, I was angry. And it comes back to, we need to be able, in order for us to have and maintain the spaces for our own, we need to support our own. So I challenge every single one of y'all. If there's a black party, my black folks, y'all go to that black party. Because next day, if they don't show up, that black party is not gonna be there anymore. Which comes up to my next question. Yeah. Have you ever faced any unique challenges as a person of color in the Leather and Kink community? If so, how did you navigate them?
Have we experienced challenges in the Leather and Kink community?
Correct?
And how have you navigated them?
Correct.
Yeah, so my so my speech at IML last year had everything to do with that in particular. I started my speech with speaking very directly to the audience about things that I have been told via Grindr, via Scruff, via contests, via you're too fat, you're too thin, you're too dark, you're too light skinned for me, you're too femme, you're too butch, you're too this, you're too that. I personally, as somebody who, are we done? Sorry. We're running behind. Okay.
We went way over.
We went way over?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to
I
cut
didn't
you
know.
off.
No, it's fine.
I didn't know. We were so
I
into
didn't
it.
know.
0 minutes? I think we had 0 minutes.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So our class is officially over. We ran out of time. I would like to thank you all for coming. Give it up for our panelists.
Your
Yes.
mixer.
As a
And
matter
then
of fact,
just-
y'all can actually follow us downstairs to the back patio. It is a BIPOC social following this. So we can continue that conversation
Downstairs.
Get info.
Thank you all, everyone. And thank you again, Kink Down
Does
South,
anyone
for
else-
inviting us.